For years, the names Hyun and son Ye-jin have been at the center of some of the most persistent and polarizing rumors in Korean entertainment. Each wave seems familiar, a small detail spotted, a moment taken out of context, a narrative built faster than facts can catch up. And yet, no matter how many times certain claims are questioned, clarified, or quietly dismissed, the speculation refuses to disappear. So why does it keep coming back? According to multiple industry insiders, the answer has less to do with any single incident and more to do with a perfect storm of timing, perception, and public expectation. People assume rumors survive because there's something to hide, one source tells us. But sometimes they survive because the story fits what people want to believe, even when the reality is far more ordinary. Behind the headlines and viral posts lies a pattern rarely examined closely: how fragments of information are amplified, how silence is misread as confirmation, and how carefully curated public images can unintentionally fuel private assumptions. In the case of Hyun and son Ye-jin, insiders say the situation became especially volatile when professional milestones, media narratives, and fan-driven interpretations began overlapping in ways no PR strategy could fully control. What's often missing from the conversation is context: how certain moments were interpreted without timelines, how unrelated events were stitched together into a single storyline, and how repetition alone can give rumors the illusion of truth. Once a narrative is established, a senior media analyst explains, every new detail gets filtered through it. Facts stop being evaluated on their own. This exclusive report looks beyond the surface-level buzz to examine what actually fueled the biggest rumors, why they gained so much traction so quickly, and, most importantly, why they continue to resurface despite a lack of new evidence. Because in an industry driven by attention, some stories don't survive because they're true. They survive because they're hard to let go of. The rumor didn't begin with a confession, a photo, or a single explosive gotcha moment. It began the way the most durable stories always do, with a pattern people thought they recognized, and a public that was already emotionally prepared to connect the dots. Insiders tell us that long before the loudest headlines, there was a quieter build-up happening in the background, a steady accumulation of small, ordinary details that, on their own, meant nothing, but together formed the outline of a narrative too tempting to ignore. A similar schedule window, a familiar location, a shared circle brushing the same industry events, a harmless coincidence posted at the wrong time, captured at the wrong angle, and interpreted by the right audience. And once the outline exists, the mind fills in the rest. That is the first reason these rumors keep returning. They are not built on one claim that can be disproved, they are built on a feeling that can't be corrected. A veteran PR manager describes it as emotional logic. People don't need proof, the manager tells us. They need a story that feels consistent. If it feels consistent, they'll defend it like it's fact. For Hyun and son Ye-jin, that consistency had a unique advantage. Their names were already tied to a strong public image, poised, private, and almost frustratingly controlled. In celebrity culture, control is often misread as secrecy, and secrecy is often misread as something to hide. So the quieter they stayed, the louder the public's imagination became. But the real ignition point, insiders suggest, was not what the public saw. It was what the public didn't see. In entertainment, the absence of information creates a vacuum. And vacuums do not remain empty. They get filled with speculation, interpretations, with someone-said claims that grow teeth because they sound plausible. A media watcher tells us the rumor ecosystem thrives on a simple equation: low visibility plus high interest equals endless projection. And few pairings generate higher interest than two major stars with a shared history of attention. Still, what makes this case especially volatile is not only popularity, it's the mechanics of how the rumors evolved. Sources describe a familiar cycle that repeats whenever the couple's names trend. First, a vague implication. Then, a burst of evidence made of screenshots and fragments. Then, a wave of accounts repeating the same interpretation until repetition itself becomes credibility. Finally, the inevitable conclusion: if everyone is saying it, it must be true. But repetition doesn't create truth. It creates momentum. And momentum is what drives the industry into tension. Because once a rumor reaches a certain speed, it becomes less about reality and more about impact. Brand partners asking questions, producers assessing risk, teams monitoring the public temperature like weather. One insider says the moment a rumor becomes sticky, it starts influencing real decisions even if it's wrong. It's like smoke, they explain. It can set off alarms even when there's no fire. This is where the story turns darker, not in the sense of scandal, but in the sense of pressure. Multiple sources tell us the most uncomfortable part about persistent rumors is that they force constant management. Every public appearance becomes a potential trigger. Every interview answer is dissected for hidden meaning. Every neutral gesture becomes either confirmation or damage control, depending on what the audience wants it to be. Stop existing as a person, one staffer says. You become a puzzle everyone thinks they were entitled to solve. And in this case, the puzzle had two irresistible ingredients: silence and symmetry. Two stars known for restraint. Careers that moved with careful calculation. Public images that didn't offer easy access. For rumor culture. That's not a barrier, it's an invitation. Insiders also point to a second accelerant, the industry's own behavior. The entertainment ecosystem benefits from attention. And attention feeds on implication. Even when official channels say nothing. Peripheral voices, commentary shows, aggregator sites, casual insider accounts often keep the narrative alive because it performs well. There's no incentive to let it die. A media strategist tells us, the rumor pays in clicks even when it costs in peace. So the question becomes, if the rumors aren't fueled by one definitive event, what keeps them burning? The answer, sources suggest. Each new wave doesn't need new proof. It only needs a new trigger, something small enough to be deniable, but visible enough to be interpreted, a timing overlap. Mention, a coincidence. A photo that doesn't show anything but somehow convinces everyone it shows everything. And once the trigger hits, the cycle restarts. What's most striking is how many people inside the industry say they can predict it now. Know when it's coming. One insider admits, it's like a seasonal storm. You see the pressure drop, and you know the headlines will follow. But here's what most people don't realize, the storms don't form randomly. They form because something specific, something structural, keeps feeding them. And that is the thread we are going to pull next. Insiders say the most persistent rumors don't survive on coincidence alone, they survive because there is a system that quietly rewards them, strengthens them, feeds them back into public view whenever attention starts to drift. And in the case of Hyun and son Ye-jin, multiple sources describe that system as unusually efficient. It starts with something small, a vague post, a clipped quote, a blurry screenshot. Nothing that could hold up under real scrutiny. Enough to trigger the same emotional reflex in audiences who already know the story they want to hear. Within hours, the fragment spreads, not because it's proven, because it's perfectly shareable, short, suggestive, easy to caption, easy to repost without responsibility. Comes the second stage, amplification disguised as validation. A handful of accounts, some fan-driven, engagement-driven, some operating in the gray zone between news and content, repeat the fragment in slightly different forms. They don't say it's true. They don't say it's false. Say the most powerful phrase in rumor culture, people are saying, or netizens are speculating. It's a rhetorical trick that creates safety for the poster and certainty for the reader at the same time. And once it reaches that stage, the rumor no longer belongs to the person who started it. It belongs to the algorithm. A digital media analyst tells us the most dangerous rumors are the ones that behave like a product. They have a title, a hook, a villain, a timeline. They can be packaged endlessly. Platforms reward packaging. The couple's names become keywords. The keywords become traffic. The traffic becomes incentive. And incentive turns into repetition with a business model. What makes this particular rumor cycle feel so stubborn, insiders say, is the way it reappears with a familiar cast of sources. Not official sources, informal ones. It's that claim they heard something. Commentators who imply they know someone. A new username that appears only when a wave is about to start. Then disappears when scrutiny arrives. Not always coordinated. But it behaves as if it is. One PR professional describes it as echo engineering. A rumor is planted. Repeated by multiple channels. And pointed to as proof that everyone is talking about it. Isn't to prove it, they say. The goal is to make it feel unavoidable. And once it feels unavoidable, it becomes a trap, especially for the people targeted by it. Because if Hyun or son Ye-jin says nothing, silence is framed as confirmation. If they deny it, the denial is framed as damage control. If they address it calmly, it's framed as careful wording. No winning move, only moves that keep the rumor alive. That's the third stage, narrative capture. Insiders say this is where the tension quietly rises inside agencies and production teams. Because persistent rumors don't only affect fans, they affect contracts, brand risk, scheduling optics, temperature surrounding a public figure. Even when everyone privately understands that the rumor is speculative, they still have to plan around its impact. Partner doesn't want the comment section derailed. Producer doesn't want promotional interviews hijacked. Team doesn't want a project's marketing narrative swallowed by unrelated buzz. So the industry starts doing what it always does when it can't stop a storm. It starts predicting it. Which is why some insiders claim they can tell when a new wave is coming, not because they know a secret, but because they see the familiar signals, the same types of posts, the same phrasing, the same recycled timeline content resurfacing with a slightly new twist. They resell the same story, one insider says. They just changed the packaging. Then there's another layer, one people rarely talk about publicly. The emotional economy. Hyun and Son Ye-jin represent a certain kind of ideal pairing in the public imagination, elegant, stable, cinematic. That image makes for perfect rumor material because it offers comfort and fantasy at the same time. A media researcher tells us, rumors persist because they're scandalous. This one persists because it's satisfying. People want it to be true because it feels like a story with a happy ending. And satisfying stories are hard to kill with facts. But here's where insiders say the situation becomes more complicated and more tense. Because there is one more mechanism that keeps these rumors from fading, a recurring trigger that reliably reactivates attention. Even when there's nothing new to report. It's not always a photo. Not always a quote. Not always a public appearance. Sometimes it's something smaller and more structural, something that creates the illusion of new information without actually being new. Insiders have hinted at it in fragments, the same misread timeline resurfacing again and again, the same misunderstood industry practice being framed as suspicious, the same routine professional behavior being interpreted as secret messaging. And each time, it reignites. Not because the evidence is stronger, but because the audience is already primed to see it as proof. So now we're at the edge of the central question. If this rumor cycle is engineered by algorithms, fed by echo channels, and protected by a narrative trap, what is the one factor that reliably restarts it? The thing that keeps the story returning like a seasonal storm, even when reality stays unchanged. That is what insiders point to as the true engine behind it. And it's exactly what we'll reveal next. Here is the uncomfortable truth insiders say most people miss. The biggest Hyun and Son Ye-jin rumors don't keep coming back because of new secret sightings. They keep coming back because the public keeps being fed the same two misunderstandings, repackaged as fresh evidence, and those misunderstandings are almost impossible to kill once they become habit. According to people familiar with how these stories are built, fuel behind the most explosive waves is usually one of the following, often both at once. 1. Misread timelines. Insiders say many viral rumor threads rely on a simple trick. They stitch unrelated moments together and present them as one continuous narrative. A photo from one time will overlap from another. An interview quote from months later, then a caption that implies cause and effect. It looks convincing because it's chronological on a screen. But in reality, the pieces don't belong together. A media analyst describes it as timeline laundering, taking ordinary events, rearranging them, and making them appear suspicious. People don't check dates, the analyst says. They check feelings. If the order feels like a story, it becomes a story. This is why the same rumor returns so easily, every few months. Those old fragments get reposted with new captions. The audience reacts as if it's breaking news, because the packaging is new even when the material is not. 2. Misunderstood industry practices. An engine is even more powerful. The public often interprets routine entertainment logistics as secret signals. Insiders point to a few examples of what often gets misread. Shared stylists, photographers, or creative teams, common at top tiers, framed as proof of coordination. Similar timing in travel or schedules, often driven by production calendars and brand commitments, framed as planned overlap. Public appearances and polite interactions framed as coded messages. Silence from teams framed as confirming something. In reality, it's standard risk management. Don't feed speculation. A veteran staffer puts it bluntly, half the evidence people circulate is literally just how the industry works. But once someone labels it suspicious, it's hard to unsee. And this is the core reason the rumor won't go away. Because the rumor is not a single claim that can be disproved, it is a machine that turns normal life into suspicious content. Teen overlap becomes a clue. Every neutral action becomes a hint. And the more the public consumes those interpretations, the more they start searching for the next proof automatically. So what's the actual exclusive reveal here? Insiders say the biggest, most repeated bombshell rumors around Hyun and son Ye-jin are typically not sourced from fresh insider confirmation at all. They are sourced from recycled old materials, re-edited timeline threads, and misunderstandings of standard celebrity industry operations, amplified until they feel real. One source close to media monitoring described the cycle like this. Every time attention drops, one re-uploads the same story with a new headline. The public thinks it's an update. It's not. It's a rerun. And that's why it won't go away. Because the rumor isn't sustained by truth, it's sustained by structure. It's easy to repost, to fact-check quickly, and emotionally satisfying to believe. So what should readers look for if they want to tell the difference between real reporting and recycled rumor content? Insiders recommend one simple rule. The new evidence doesn't include verifiable dates, direct statements, or credible sourcing, and instead relies on vague implications or stitched-together screenshots. It's probably the same myth wearing a new outfit. That doesn't mean people should stop being curious. It means curiosity should come with a filter. Because in the attention economy, the most profitable stories are the ones that can be repeated forever. And Hyun and son Ye-jin, two of the most watched, most interpreted names in the industry, are exactly the kind of pairing rumor culture can recycle endlessly. Not because something is constantly happening, because the machine never stops looking for something to sell. All the analysis, the timelines, and the behind-the-scenes mechanics, one conclusion becomes impossible to ignore. The most powerful force keeping these rumors alive is not revelation, but repetition. For Hyun and son Ye-jin, the persistence of speculation has less to do with what is happening now and more to do with how easily familiar narratives can be revived in an industry built on attention. Ordinary professional overlaps become extraordinary once framed the right way. Silence becomes suspicious. And coincidence, when repeated often enough, tends to feel intentional. Insiders emphasize that this pattern is not unique, but it is amplified by their visibility. When two globally recognized figures exist under constant scrutiny, even the absence of news becomes news. Once a rumor is engineered to survive on structure rather than substance, it no longer needs fresh fuel to keep burning. What matters now is not whether another wave will come, it will, but how audiences choose to engage when it does. Curiosity is natural. Discernment is essential. Because the line between investigation and imagination has never been thinner. And the cost of crossing it is often paid by the people at the center of the story. As one industry observer put it, myths don't survive because they're true. They survive because they're easy. This exclusive was written not to dismiss interest, but to add context, to slow the cycle just enough for facts to catch up with feelings. In an era where headlines travel faster than verification, understanding why a rumor exists can be more revealing than the rumor itself. Thank you for reading. We appreciate your time and trust in our exclusive reporting. We remain committed to examining entertainment stories with care, context, and clarity, and to returning with insight when speculation threatens to outrun reality.